wanted to do something a little bit different today. I'm just doing sort of a sit down, bit of a chat. There is an issue that I have dealt with personally, and I know that a lot of other people deal with as well, centering around weight issues and weight loss and insecurities, and it's just something that I really wanted to kind of take my videos more onto a serious note and just have kind of a heart-to-heart kind of thing with you today. The basic premise of this is just wanting to talk to people, really kind of get it out there about issues that I've had personally with weight problems and the issues that have kind of come from that. And specifically today I wanted to talk about my issues with comfort eating, because that is one of the major things which does lead to obesity. So basically we live in a ridiculously crazy world, and one thing that has been a constant companion to me throughout a lot of it is food. I did find from a very young age I struggled with overeating, and I got into really bad habits around food, and I really have suffered the consequences, both sort of physically and mentally, from it. I dealt with years of bullying at school and beyond school as well. But one question that I really want to answer for people is, does comfort eating even work? What is its purpose? And does it actually, in the long run, make you feel any better at all? So today we're going to do something different. We're going to grab a cup of tea, and we are going to discuss and just have a bit of a chatty tea vloggy kind of thing. So put your candles on, get your pyjamas on, and welcome to my world. When I was younger I had a lot of issues with food. I have been overweight ever since I can remember. It's something that has been a constant battle for me throughout of pretty much my whole life. When I was younger I did used to go to my nan's house every day after school, and eventually when I went from primary school to high school I ended up going every Thursday afternoon. Food was a big part of my family's life, especially for my nan. I lost my granddad when I was 6 years old, and she kind of filled her time with making food and trying to make everybody else happy. And I used to have, every time I went, I'd always get a bowl of gravy and a piece of bread before dinner, as kind of like a taster, she'd call it, that I would have, and then have my dinner after that as well. And I kind of got into this habit of snacking, that seemed to be quite a big thing for me, and something that I kind of continued on without even realising why I was doing it. I did find that it became a massive kind of issue habit. I'd find that kind of I had these moments that if I figured out if I could walk to town rather than getting the bus kind of 3 stops down the road, it would save me a whole £1, and I could buy sweets in the shop at the end of my nan's road before I got to her house, and then I'd be getting the tasters after that, and it just kind of went from bad to worse really. I did have quite a while when I was in primary school as well. Initially when my granddad was quite ill, I ended up being sent to a childminder after school, and I really enjoyed it. The people were lovely and the childminder was lovely, and we got our dinner there, but I was sent there because my parents worked so hard to give me a fantastic childhood, and really the effect that had was that I wouldn't really see them in the mornings, and I wouldn't really see them until a couple of hours after I'd finished school at night. So I would end up kind of eating at my childminders, and then when my parents got home and they would be having their dinner as well, I was this really kind of horrible child that I couldn't stand other people having stuff that I didn't have. So it kind of got to a point that, you know, if my parents were eating dinner, that I really wanted to have something as well, so I didn't feel left out. And my mum, bless her, obliged me, rather stupidly in hindsight, and it just became kind of a habit of having 2 dinners. And then I'd kind of, when I went to high school, I started getting the bus, and I would get home before my parents and be at home on my own, and more often than not, because I was a bit of an arse as a child, I would end up having food beforehand. My mum would buy me a lot of like microwave meals and stuff like that for me to have beforehand. But a lot of the time then, you know, I didn't really enjoy them, so I'd tell my mum that I'd throw them away, and then she'd make me more dinner when she got in with Dad. And even when I said that I'd eaten them, I'd always get some kind of snack while they were having dinner as well. And it just became kind of habit that I didn't know why I was doing it, and I didn't know why I was lying, and I didn't know sort of why I was eating really. And it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't really comfort eating. It had just become kind of a habit, and it wasn't really affecting me that much. I mean, I was a little bit larger than other children, but it didn't really affect anything too much. It wasn't until I got to sort of the end of year 8 at school, so around about the age of 12, going on 13, that I did find that it became an issue, and kind of it morphed into something slightly different. It became, the end of year 8 is when I was getting bullied a lot, to the point that I was getting called things like circus 10 because I was a lot larger than other children. And there were comments that really, really hurt. And I think I kind of got to a point when I shut myself away from the world so much, and I would take my lunch and I would take it with me to this place we had at school. It's called the Sunken Garden, and I would just sit there on my own with my lunch, and I would eat really, really slowly, just so I could spend more time on my own, and I didn't have to kind of talk to other people. And I really did kind of close myself off from the world and became quite anxious about what people thought of me. And so if someone was walking past, I'd get really panicky that they were talking about me, or that they didn't like me for the way that I looked. And going to an all-girls grammar school was probably the worst thing that I could have done at that point. It really was the worst environment for me at the time, because girls can be really, really bitchy. I don't think I would have been bothered if it had been boys, because I really wasn't interested in boys at that point. I think probably by the time I got to sort of 15, 16, I would have been really bothered, but at the age of sort of 12, when it really initially started and really was at its worst, I wasn't bothered. I was too young. So moving on a couple of months, I ended up at the end of year 9 completely shutting myself off. I didn't want to spend any time with anyone. I'd started saving my bus fares up, kind of walking 2 or 3 stops down the line so that I could have that little bit of extra money so I could buy more food, and that would give me an excuse to kind of sit down and not talk to anyone and pretend that I was reading a book while I was eating, and I'd have more to eat, so it would take more time to eat it. This continued on for quite a while, and at this point I was getting larger, but I didn't really realise I was getting larger. And I didn't have any health issues or anything like that. You know, I was doing things that normal teenagers do in their initial teenage years. I then got onto sort of food. At that point was kind of, I would eat it and then I would feel good for the rest of the day, because if anyone said anything to me, or if anyone I thought anything was panicking me, or anyone was talking about me to get me panicked, I did just kind of revert back and think, it's fine, you know, you've got this special place you can go to and everything will be fine. And then when I was in year 10, it kind of graduated from that to being proper comfort eating as I know it now, in that it didn't matter how much food I ate, I would feel fantastic for the 5 minutes afterwards, and then I'd kind of start to feel like, oh, well, maybe this is the issue that I'm having rather than the people, you know, maybe the people don't like me because I eat so much or because I'm so overweight. So I kind of tried dieting, and I have pretty much tried every single diet under the sun, and you know, they work for a little while, but I think I've kind of got to a point now when it became such habit from such a young age that I find it really difficult to stop eating certain things. It makes me angry, it makes me grumpy, I get really depressed if I can't eat what I want. And I think it was on a part this comfort eating situation that I was in, and part a number of the different situations, from parents to peers to everything building up, that really kind of overwhelmed me a lot. And I kind of felt at that point in my life, especially when I was reaching sort of mid-teens, 16, 17 years old, that kind of eating was the one thing that I control. There was a lot of clever people in my school. It was a very established grammar type school, and I was one of the thicker children. I wasn't very good at school, and that played on my life as well, in that, you know, I was getting a lot of stick from teachers and stuff that didn't really understand what I was going through, because I didn't initially tell anyone that I was being bullied, and it really did affect my schoolwork as well. So eating kind of became one thing that I could control. I suppose it's kind of similar to some people who experience anorexia. I'm not saying all anorexics do it because they want control, but some anorexics do. And it's that control that, you know, when there's lots of things that are going on in your life, that control feels good. And for me, it wasn't restricting my food, it was eating what I wanted when I wanted, and making myself happy through kind of all the chemicals and endorphins and whatever else you get in food. And I kind of got to a point when I went to university that I'd hit my highest weight I've ever been at, and it became more the weight that was depressing me rather than what people were saying. You know, people grew up, they were friendly still. There was obviously still a couple of people who were like, oh well, you're fat, I don't want to be your friend. But it was reduced dramatically in numbers, so it became a lot more my weight that was an issue, and that was making me panicky and depressed. And I kind of got to a point now in my life that, you know, I will sometimes look at myself in the mirror and just be like, oh, really, why did you do this to yourself? Why did you let this happen? But I can guarantee an hour later I will still, you know, want to snack on something, because I think I've got to that point where my brain is so in the habit and used to having specific things and eating larger portions that it is very difficult for me to get out of it. And I know people say, oh well, it's just, you know, you just got to change the way you eat and your habits and stuff, but when you've been so affected by it, it is very difficult to do. You know, I do manage it, but I will have a day or two here and there when I will just want to eat and eat and eat and eat, and it will just ruin everything that I've done. I have managed to kind of really, really slowly reduce my weight, but it is not by any substantial amount. I mean, it's something like, I tend to lose a lot of weight at the start of diets, and then I will stay sort of the same, if not a little tiny bit more. So all in all, since I was 18, which is almost 7 years ago now, I've been on about 10 different diets, and my weight overall has changed by about half a stone. I'm half a stone lighter now than I was when I was 18. And it is depressing, it's very depressing. But there's a lot of people that struggle with it, and I think that people who don't struggle with it, it's one of those things that you really don't understand, like with a lot of other habits and psychological things, sort of things like anorexia, and when people cut themselves, it's something that unless you do it, you don't understand it, and it's something that you can't judge and that you can't have an educated opinion on. Obviously you can have your opinions, everyone is entitled to their opinions, but it won't be an educated one from experience. I would like to say that it's something that's very, very easy to get over, but it's not, and comfort eating is a real issue. There are a lot of people out there, as I say, that are suffering with it and that do experience comfort eating. You are not alone, it is something that I've suffered with, but it's something that shouldn't control your life. It's something you can get over with a lot of work, and it is something that, you know, size really doesn't matter. It only really, I have an issue with it is when it affects your health. You know, you shouldn't want to lose weight to be like, oh well, if I lose weight I can get into this size 6 dress, and oh, if I lose weight, you know, I might get this guy to like me or this girl to like me. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about you and your health and what is best for you. I have experienced health problems from my weight. I'm nowhere near as fit as I should be. I tend to get quite embarrassed when I go to the gym, but it's one of those things that you just sort of have to deal with it, and something that will get better in the long run. And there's so many people out there that do have the same opinions as you, and you need to do what is best for you. Don't try and change yourself for people to please other people. You know, it's your life, it's what you want to do. Just do what is best for your body. Obviously, comfort eating can have its kind of ups when you do feel fantastic, but you need to understand that 10 minutes down the line you will not feel fantastic. You will feel crap about yourself. I do. Most times I do overeat now, I will sit there afterwards and I will hate myself for it, and that is probably something that I really want you to get out of this. If you are watching it and you suffer from comfort eating habits as well, just that you are not alone, and everybody feels crappy from time to time. You just need to find other things to kind of take up your time, find other hobbies or other habits that you can put out there other than your comfort eating. This has been a bit of a sad one, and I hope you had a cup of tea, because I really need a cup of tea right now after talking about depressing things for so long. I do apologise, but it is sort of something that I wanted to get out of there as one of the main issues that I deal with. I know that obviously a lot of people do have the same kind of comfort eating habits as I do, and I really just wanted to kind of put it out there that you don't have to be self-conscious and you don't have to hate yourself because of your size. You just need to be healthy, and that is the main thing. It doesn't matter what other people think. You can find a little bit more information on my blog, which I'll put everything down below, and I am going to grab my tea and enjoy a film because I feel like I need one after that. So bye!